And as I end the soldier and poet. Yes, tell this to all the world.
Hello, Podskis, and welcome back to the Pod Sound School podcast, a podcast that aims to help improve your podcast and gets into the lifestyle and struggles of podcasters. This is your host, Veronica, and here with me is my sidekick,
Studio Steve.
I am the social media and branding strategist for the Pod Sound School.
And I'm the producer and creative director, and we're here to teach you all the skills and show you the tools you need to create a podcast that people will go crazy about.
Indeed. In today's episode, we'll be sharing with you our SEO strategy. This is exactly what we teach our students inside our paid program, Smart and Sexy Podcast Launch. We're super excited about this episode. It's full with pro tips, so stick around.
SEO is a free marketing strategy that you should be using to give your episodes and podcasts more exposure. We have 7 steps waiting for you on this episode, so let's get to the meat and potatoes.
Indeed. I don't know why I'm saying indeed so much.
Indeed's the day of the word, or the word of the day.
You may be wondering, what is SEO? If you're not familiar with SEO, believe me, I was not familiar with SEO a few months ago. SEO was just this strange thing that people like to brag about or like throw in conversations. So especially content creators and bloggers and people would like to throw that SEO term. So you would pretend that you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My
Totally.
SEO strategist
Yeah,
loves
my
it.
SEO strategist. Yeah.
Yes.
So if you are in the same boat we were a few months ago, let me explain what SEO is. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. SEO is a free marketing strategy you can use to make your podcast appear on the first page of Google when users search for your specific topic. As we know, Google is one of the most popular search engines in the world. The good news for us podcasters is that last year, Google started indexing podcasts. This means that Google is crawling spoken words along with titles and meta descriptions to populate results in our SERPs, search engine results page. So the first page that pops up when you're searching something on Google.
That's a SERP.
As of today, Google users have to add the word podcast to bring up the audio content. And this is very exciting, this is expected to change. Now more than ever, we need to have our SEO game figured out.
Yeah, so I like that. And when you said crawling spoken words, what that means is that Google has these bots that crawl through web pages and look at the font or the text.
What are bots? Because when people when you say bots, I imagine like these little minions.
Yeah, little minion robots. And Google has tons of them, these little minion robots, and they go and they check all the words on websites.
Okay.
Well, now they've just multiplied their minions in a warehouse, probably in the Google house. And those minions are now actually listening to podcast episodes. They transcribe the words from podcast episodes. And the goal that the word on the streets is that Google is actually going to start populating podcast episodes as answers to the queries that people type into Google. So that is really cool. And there are ways that you can use keywords and things like that. And that's what we're going to get into this episode to make it so that when somebody types in how to clean a swimming pool, if you have a podcast episode about that, your podcast episode will pop up in Google, giving you massive exposure to your podcast.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's really cool,
that
right?
we're getting into that, because I think no matter the platform that you are at, it can be social media, it can be YouTube, it can be podcasting. There's always an algorithm behind those platforms. There's always a way to improve your visibility within those platforms.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about that in this episode.
Yeah. So why is SEO important for your podcast?
SEO ensures your podcast is discoverable, maximizing its visibility. You want your podcast to be high on search results in Google. You want it to get high traffic.
Yeah, you want it to get high traffic. You want, the more traffic your podcast gets, the more likely people are going to discover it. And also, there's still a lot of people that aren't familiar with podcasting.
Yeah, this is why this strategy is so important, because there are a lot of people who are not familiar with podcasting, but they are familiar with Google. They've been using Google and they use Google as their main source of information. So even if they have no idea about podcasting, if they've been living under a rock, if they search for a term or phrase, if they type a question, and then a podcast episode comes up, then there's an opportunity for you to turn that person into a podcast listener and a fan of your podcast.
Yes. And so we have 7 tips you could say to cover. And so let's get right to them.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so number 1 is find yourself some keywords.
Find yourself.
See if our headers this time can be in a Southern accent. Let's see if you can.
Southern accent.
Oh, that sounds pretty good.
Find yourself some keywords.
So keywords are words and also phrases that users enter into Google or other search engines. And our goal is to find those keywords that our niche audience or our ideal listener is searching for, and then create content around those keywords, or at least the content that we have created to find keywords that can fit with the content or the episodes that we already have created, right?
Yes.
So knowing what people are searching for and creating content that answers their questions, that's basically the whole basis of SEO, right?
Yeah, and I want you to picture yourself sitting in front of your computer and you have this beautiful spreadsheet in front of you with a list of keywords, phrases, and things that your ideal listener is looking for on Google. Can you imagine that? How exciting that would be? It's just a wealth of
knowledge. It's like
knowledge.
A roadmap into their brain.
A roadmap into their
it's
brain.
It's like a roadmap into their desires and what they want and what makes them tick and what they're looking for and how you can help them and how you can turn them into ranting and raving fans.
And then you create an episode, you create content that answers those questions.
Yeah. So find yourself some keywords. And we talk about these tools all the time that you can use. And they are Keyword Surfer. That's a Google Chrome extension. It's free. There's Google Trends, which Veronica likes a lot. And then there's also Answer the Public. So check out those, start playing around with those tools. And like Veronica said, have an Excel worksheet full of keywords.
I'm a sucker for Excel spreadsheets.
Okay, number 2. This is a big one and really cool if you can execute it. If you're ready, get yourself a website if you don't have one already and start repurposing your episodes into blog posts.
And here we want to make an emphasis, and if you're ready, there's a lot of podcasters that are not ready to have a website because they don't have the infrastructure or they only have their podcast. Maybe it's because of budgeting reasons that they don't want to have a website.
Yeah, and you can get by just fine for a while with a link tree.
With Linktree and your web host. But after a while, if you're ready to take it to the next level with your online presence, we recommend that you get a website going for your podcast and to start repurposing your podcast episodes into blog posts and embed your player on your articles.
And you can embed specific episodes and embed that player into that blog post article, which will give more SEO to your podcast host and will also give more SEO to the name of your podcast and to your website, right?
Yeah, and also you can follow all the SEO strategy for blog articles, which are the headings and, the different kind of headings that you can use on a blog article.
And that goes back to metadata again.
Yeah, also the description that shows up. I don't know, there's a name for that description that shows up on Google when you're researching for something. There's this thing. So all of the things that you can do to optimize a blog article, you can do it. And then on top of that, then you embed your episode into that blog post.
Yes.
And you just have it.
And it really, after a while, after you get a lot of blog posts going on, then you'll start to see your website gain a lot of authority. But it's going to take some time. That takes a long time to do that, and it takes a lot of work. And you don't want to just grab the transcripts from your episodes and put the transcripts up there because you want them to be, good blog articles. And we'll get to that when we get to another one of our points.
Yeah, and that's the thing with SEO. You touched on a very important point. It's not that you're going to add some keywords to to the titles of your episodes or to your description, and then all of a sudden the next day you will come up. It takes some time to build.
It takes some time,
SEO.
and the reason it does is because the other big component about SEO is you always hear all people talking about algorithms, right? Like how to hack Instagram's algorithm, how to, dominate YouTube's algorithm. Well, algorithms, what they're talking about is all of these platforms, all these websites have these minions, like we said, in a little warehouse that are documenting the user's experience. And Google is really trying to give people the best answer to their question. So they want to find authoritative sources. And so what you don't want to do is to use these keywords as clickbait to just get people over to your website. And then they get there and they don't have a good experience because you didn't answer their question. So the best place to start really is with some good quality copy.
And that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. It annoys me so much that when I'm searching for something and then the first articles that come up don't have the answer to my question. Sometimes they don't even have anything. You just click on them and it's a bunch of advertisement and a paragraph.
Yeah.
And you just feel used.
Yeah, you do. You feel dirty and you don't have a good experience. And that actually is going to hurt your SEO. So it's a wonder how those ad cluttered websites get so much SEO to begin with, right? Okay, so let's move on to number 3, which is don't overuse your keywords and place them in strategic places. So what do you mean by overuse your keywords?
What I mean by overusing the keywords is I've seen this a lot. People using, let's say you're planning an episode about vegan cupcakes, and I don't know why I'm using this example a lot. And you have a list of 10 keywords or 10 phrases that you know that people are looking for as far as that subject. And you put them all together in the description of your episode. Or you put them all together on a paragraph on your article on your website.
Yeah.
And there's no substance, no continuity.
Yeah.
It's hard to read.
In addition to that, another way you could say it is to use natural language. So it's a balance act between inputting the keywords or the phrases that people are searching for, but using it in a natural language that doesn't sound like you're clickbaiting.
Yeah,
people.
You need to find a balance between being strategic with your keywords and also use very good writing and very good production and deliver value.
And strategic places, this is interesting because the other thing about SEO, and we don't really need to go into it because our main focus here is Google, right? But every platform has their own SEO. You always hear people say, play by the rules of the platform. Like Instagram has its own best practices so that you will be friendly searchable, however you say it on Instagram, right? Well, so does YouTube and so does Twitter and so does Google. The strategic places that we're talking about for the purposes of this episode is Google. And that is, like Veronica mentioned in your blog post, there's strategic places to put those
but
keywords.
Also when you're uploading your podcast to your web host. Because if you have submitted your podcast to Google Podcast, then if you're using those keywords on the titles and you're using those keywords in your descriptions or your episode summary, then that information is on Google Podcast.
Yes.
And when you search for something and you add the word podcast, then those podcasts with those keywords in their descriptions will come up, or their titles. I've seen that all the time.
Yeah, all the time, right? Especially, and also, like you said, the first episode, eventually you won't even have to have the word podcast in there. But we're still waiting for that.
We're still waiting for that change, Yeah,
so those strategic places, they're actually, some are prioritized over others. So the most important one is episode title. And that's where if it sounds like it's in a natural language, like how to build a birdhouse.
How to make vegan cupcakes.
Yeah, how do I make vegan cupcakes? And you actually make a really fun episode all about how to make vegan cupcakes, then that can be the exact title of your episode. It's in natural language, but it's also the exact keyword. And then the other place is your episode summary. And this is when we're on our podcast host, we fill in these boxes and these become sort of implemented into our RSS feed, right? Into the code of our RSS feed. So is your episode summary, that's a big one. And then the first couple sentences of your episode description or some also called show notes or episode notes. So that first sentence or two, choose 3 different phrases or 3 different keywords. Put the one you most want to rank for as your title, the second one that you want to rank for as your summary, and the third one you want to rank for as the first sentence in your episode show notes. And that's like the trifecta, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. And I know we want to keep it only to Google, but we do this for our YouTube videos.
Yes, and YouTube is similar, but that's a whole nother 5 episodes. With YouTube SEO optimization. However, that is something that we get into in detail with the bonus module that we offer in our Smart and Sexy podcast launch. So if you're ready to get your podcast onto YouTube, you won't want to miss that bonus. And that comes along with the Smart and Sexy course, which is pretty cool.
Registration will be open in a few weeks.
Yeah, so you can get on the wait list if you go to podcastingsmart.com. That was a beautiful plug. It sounded so natural.
I know. Hey guys, we wanted to interrupt our episode with a mid-roll. This is something new we're trying out. Something that many podcasters don't think about is that they can start using mid-rolls to advertise their own services, products, or crowdfunding. So we thought we would try it out.
Yeah, and it's actually really easy to do. You just choose some mid-roll music and maybe a mid-roll in and out transition sound effect. I like computer glitches, whips, or even bubbles. And then record your ad. Spend some time mixing it in its own project or session, and then export it to a folder where you keep all your assets.
So, if you want to learn about mid-rolls, pre-rolls, post-rolls, segments, and how to launch a stellar podcast,
or beef up the one you already have,
and kill it on social media and build authority with your brand, we teach that and much more in our podcasting program, Pod Sound School Smart and Sexy Podcast Launch.
Check this episode's description for the waitlist link or go to podcastingsmart.com. But registration opens soon, so hurry up. Okay, now back to the episode. So let's now move on to number 4.
Yeah, number 4 is the quality of your content is important. And I think we were starting to get into that a few points ago.
Yeah, which is basically just the user's experience, right?
The user's experience, sí.
Oh, that's okay. A little bit of Spanish in there is fine.
Sí. Asegúrate de que respondes las preguntas que tu audiencia hace.
It's really nice to hear some Spanish. You know, it just refreshes the brain.
Yes, you want to make sure that your content is on point. Because here's the thing. You may have all the keywords, you may have all your strategy, your SEO strategy put in place. But if your content is not there yet, doesn't have good quality, then what is going to happen is that people will not listen to the podcast, will not read the article, will not stay longer on your website. If your website is just not very appealing, if it's disorganized and just not the user's experience.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to make assumptions about how these little minion bots work. Because what are the things we click on, right? That's super easy in the coding for them to say, hey, this person clicked a thumbs up or a thumbs down. One of the big ones that's on all of the platforms is share. And you're always saying it. I love Veronica's always telling people make content that's shareable. And that's the key. If somebody wants to share your content and they share it, that is a big sign to Google. That's a big sign to all the platforms that it's valuable. And it's valuable to that specific user. So other users that have similar profiles that these minions develop about us, each and every one of us, we're being profiled and put into categories by all of the platforms we're on constantly so that they can make the platform more addicting to us, right? So within those platforms, somebody like Veronica, for example, who's constantly looking at food porn mixed with watching people work out, which is weird.
I'm guilty.
Yeah.
I do that.
She watches people work out right next to a greasy cheeseburger. It's odd, but whatever it is. So other people like you who love food porn and working out, they are going to be more inclined to, you know what I mean? You're feeding into the algorithm of...
That's what you're going to be recommended.
Yeah. And so SEO really does come down to make really good content, do your market research, that keyword research, by the way, don't look at it as, well, I don't want to, I just want to be honest and like straightforward with my content. But no, like actually that could really inspire you and help you to kind of stay on course with your podcast and to have fresh topics and ideas to talk about with each one of your episodes.
Yeah, this isn't about being dishonest and this isn't about deceiving people. It's about finding out what they need help with. And when you are in the beginning stages of your podcast, you may not have a big audience that you can leverage and go and ask them questions to really know what they need. This is why we lean on these things, on these tools. We leverage these tools. We leverage these tools to find out what they want and to create things that they need. With that being said, we know that you are a creator.
Yeah, and you're creative.
We know that you want to have the freedom to create whatever you want. We are creators too, and we understand.
And we also know that, and I think that it's in the ideals of being creative, that sometimes what people want is just your most creative self, right? Some of the best songs, they didn't have any intentions. They weren't thinking about the audience. They just sang their heart out. So definitely sing your heart out.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
but
be
we
you.
Want those other episodes who are strategic, who have a lot of thought and strategy behind them, so we can give more visibility to those other episodes who are just us being crazy and creative.
Yeah, and I can't remember the YouTuber that you liked, but she said, do 2 for them, 1 for you.
2 for them, 1 for you.
Or maybe it was 3 for them, 1 for you, or something like that.
Name, but
yeah, I can't remember her name. She was great. But that's kind of what we're talking about here, is do a couple episodes that are totally based in strategy and in research and market research, and then do one just off the cuff, like just crazy and 100% creative, what you most feel like doing. So yeah, that's great. And I think that will allow us to now move on to number 5.
Yes.
Which is to use your social media to give your episodes a boost.
Yes. We're firm believers here in social media. We didn't used to be social media people.
No.
But now we've seen how powerful social media can be when you are in social media, when you're part of social media with a purpose.
Yes.
With the purpose of getting more visibility for your business, with the purpose of connecting with people like-minded, with the purpose of connecting with your community,
with the purpose of entertaining.
with the purpose of entertaining and giving value.
I think this gets to this whole thing I'm just seem to be obsessed with lately, which is just as podcasters, we wear tons of different hats. And we do. And one of them is that we're social media savvy and that we're social media gurus. And then we quickly realize as podcasters that we create micro content and separate content for our social media channels, and that we might have fans and people that we entertain and educate on social media that never come over to listen to our podcast. But it still all has to do with our influence. It has to do with our SEO, and it has to do with our audience.
Yeah.
So
how is it that social media is part of your SEO strategy? Well, it's very simple. After you've done your keyword research and after you have put that episode together using those keywords, and you want to publish that episode, you want to bring a lot of traffic to that piece of content.
yes.
You don't want to publish it and forget about it and not doing anything, because that piece of content needs a boost.
Yes, because that's one of the other elements that is considered by all of the platforms, which is traffic. How popular is the content? Are people clicking on it? Are people sharing it? Are people talking about it? So we want to give it a little bit of a boost. You know, this is where we harass our friends and family to come check out our content. That's one thing that works at first. And then the other thing is to find creative ways to give your new posts a boost and make people click over and convert over to your new post or your new podcast episode.
Yeah, and for this, you want to have a social media strategy. You want to create good content for your social media, good graphics, and also be very persistent with asking your people, your communities to share your content, to share that podcast.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, one
Ask
of the
them.
biggest mistakes that all sorts of content creators are making is they don't ask. We made that with our YouTube channel. We didn't start seeing growth on our YouTube channel until we started asking people to subscribe. Felt a little awkward at first. Now it's just part of our language. It doesn't even feel awkward anymore. Just tell people what to do. They'll do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing...
On that note, don't forget to share this episode.
Oh, yeah. Please share this episode. Back to that cool YouTuber gal whose name we can't remember, which is sad. It's also kind of a similar strategy to your social media without getting too deep into social media strategy on this episode. And that's to do a few for them and then just one for you. Don't bombard them with come check out my episode, come check out my episode. And also don't let come check out my episode be the only thing you post on social media. Post a bunch of other really cool, relevant stuff to them.
There's all sorts of things that you can post that... I mean, we've been learning so much. Content that you can post on your social media is educating your audience about your podcast.
Yes.
We take for granted that our audience knows what we're talking about. And most of the times they don't.
Well, yeah, most of the times they don't really know.
So now we're taking really helping them to understand why finding your niche, your ideal listener is important before launching a podcast. Many people didn't know that. Why is it important to invest money in good equipment? Why is it important to have a social media strategy and a marketing strategy? Why is it important to look at your podcast as a product instead of just another thing that you produce?
Yeah. And so take some time and dive into your social media strategy. There are a ton of free resources. We have some social media videos as a playlist on our YouTube channel that you can watch. We'll leave a couple of those links in this episode's description.
We'll be releasing news videos too.
Veronica's very excited to update her Instagram videos that we did a while ago. So maybe wait until we release the new videos. But
there's a very good video about SEO.
Yes, but there's a very new video up to Veronica's standards about SEO that it's a lot quicker in this episode, and it will really help you to understand SEO better.
For my visual learners.
And finally, and I've said this a bunch of times too, but delegate different social platforms to different members of your team, especially if you have a co-host. And it seems like you're kind of the one pulling all the weight and doing the editing and Twitter and Instagram. You need to have a talk and make your co-host take over Facebook, take over Twitter while you do the editing, right? Number 6, take it away.
Research what your competitors are doing and step it up a notch.
Yes. So this is great advice as well. And this is just a way to get inspired, to get those creative juices flowing, and to just see what your competitors are doing. And I always like to say they're peers, not competitors, because in the podcast industry, especially, hopefully this never changes. Podcasters are so welcome and there's room for all of us. And it's not like we're competing. We're sort of just sharing the same space and communicating messages, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And some people don't like to do this, and I totally understand. Just find the balance between finding out what other people are doing. Let's say, going back again to the vegan cupcakes or the vegan lifestyle, you can search what other podcasts about a vegan lifestyle there are out there and how are they approaching their content. You can look at their cover art and things like that. When we are creating our YouTube videos, we don't like to watch other people's videos that much.
Yeah, because we want it to be authentic.
We want it to be authentic. We want it to be us. And sometimes watching other people's content can taint your creativity.
Yeah, and same with listening to their episodes. Yeah, but one thing you can really do with your competitors, especially when it comes to a podcast, is to just check out their social media and then go spy on their followers and spy on their subscribers. And that is a perfect way to see it, because if there's a podcast very similar to yours, chances are their followers and listeners would love your podcast as well.
So as far as their content, just find the balance between finding out how they are approaching their content, their format.
What do you love that they do? And
what do you love that they do? But once again, don't get discouraged. Don't copy them.
Yeah.
Don't, absolutely not. Please don't do that.
Yeah, just be unique.
Be unique, be you. We're not telling you to reinvent the wheel right here, but just you take a different approach on a subject, put your own words into it, your own energy and your own vibe can be sufficient to make a killer episode or to write a piss.
Oh, to take a piss.
To write an article that people will share.
Yep. Yeah. And now you've been very patient, Podski. We are ready to take you to the last point in this riveting and powerful episode.
Yes.
And that is number 7, which is to cite and credit your sources.
Yes. And I started talking about that, the last point, a little bit. Don't copy.
Yeah.
But with that being said, there's a lot of things that you can borrow from other content creators. But it's a good practice to ask for permission.
Yes.
And also a good practice to cite and to credit those sources in your content.
And you hit on 2 things, Veronica, which is networking is why it's cool, because you can hit those people up and say, hey, can I cite you in my next episode? And if they say yes, then you send them a link to your episode. You can @ them. You can, maybe share in some of their followers just by citing them. And then the other thing is SEO. It's actually, you always hear people with SEO talk about backlinks, which is really important for your website. And that's how many really reputable websites with authority are linking to your website. Those are huge. But, forward links, I don't know if that's what they're called. They're front links. Maybe that is what they're called. That actually helps too. It doesn't help.
Maybe you can get the person or the person that you're citing or the resource that you're citing to give you credit for include that in your podcast.
Yeah, maybe you can even ask them if they can link to your website or to link to your podcast. Or even better, embed your podcast player on their website. Start getting creative with this. The more people that will embed your podcast players, the better. This is a big strategy you can use for SEO. You can, let's say back to vegan cupcakes again, right? Let's say
we're not even vegan.
No, we're not. Although we really love vegan food a lot. And Anyway, but if you go to a vegan lifestyle website, there's tons of them. Go look at one that you really vibe with and they don't have a podcast. A lot of websites are just looking for more material to put on their websites. A lot of websites are asking for contributors. You can guest post blogs on articles, and that's one of the main practices that people get backlinks to their websites, is they write articles for really reputable websites, and those websites in exchange allow them to put one link usually that links back to your website. So when the Google minions and bots are crawling through that reputable website, they see your website on there, and that flags your website as being more reputable, and you get a higher SEO score, as it's called, right? So it's the same thing. Get that podcast player embedded onto a bunch of other people's websites. Say, hey, I noticed that your website about veganism is really cool, and I have this really cool episode about vegan cupcakes. Would you want to put it in your website? And there you go. And you can see it takes some work. It takes some creativity, but your podcast is worth it. You've put all this work into it. Let's get it in front of more people.
Indeed.
Indeed is the day of the word. And I am a turd.
What did I say this morning?
What did you say?
We need to get rid of that SAAP.
Oh, yeah. We need to get rid of that SAAP. More important than what you said, what is it that we need to get rid of? Oh, no. Whatever it is, we better get rid of it, SAAP. I think what you should have said is SAFP, right? Soon as possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Because we've had enough of this nonsense.
And there you have it, Podski. What did you think of this episode? Slide into our DMs and let us know.
We make this show for you, and we'll love to learn your feedback. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Pod Sound School. Make sure you share a screenshot of this episode and tag us so we can give you some love on the Instas.
Yeah, and if you're interested in our feedback, we do pod audits most Thursdays live in our Facebook community, Podcasting for Bosses. These are 30-minute coaching sessions where we dissect your podcast, your social media, and your content. You'll find the sign-up sheet inside the group, podsoundschool.com/community.
And until next time,
Happy casting,
amigos!